when we talk about religion, just the very word religion is like very reactive word. People react very strongly to the word religion because it's hard to see past surface appearances, all of the negative history that we learn in schools and we learn from the other sources, and also the popular rhetoric that speaks very negatively about religion, as if religion is just for foolish people. And that's a very popular way of talking. You make a lot of friends by talking like that nowadays. Whereas if you talk about religion, you can quickly lose friends. But these blocks to the way that we see religion don't mask the fact that there is something at the core of it. There's something at the core. The message of religion still remains strong, and countless people still feel the importance of it in their daily lives and in their most special moments in their lives. They really feel a lot of power come through. I'd ask you to just look past those things for today and just let me offer you this seminar on the future of religion. So this is based on a book by Master Ryuho Okawa called The Challenge of Religion. And this book is long out of print, but it was one of the first that I read many years ago from Master Okawa, who of course is the founder of Happy Science and has written over 1,000 books. So this one I found very interesting because it did what I'm trying to do in this seminar, and it explained the differences between different aspects of religion, different levels of religion, and good and bad religions. So it's very popular nowadays to say, it's very easy to say, all religions are sort of the same, and there's no difference between them. There's no good and there's no bad, or all religions are good in some way. But the fact is that some religions espouse poison, and they poison people's minds, and they hurt people's relationships, and they do a lot of harm in the world. Whereas other religions, and we've had them since the dawn of time, good religions help people, lighten people's view of the world, lighten people's relationships to others. They inspire people to live beautiful and fuller lives and to become more of what they can be, really discover their true potential. And it also, religion to me also helps the world to do that. So not just the individual, it's not just a individual spirituality, but religion is a collective effort. So together, it inspires whole civilizations. So religion over the millennia has inspired the rise of civilizations. And to us, that's what we're seeing in the current era through Master Okawa's teachings. We're seeing a real upsurging in culture and new ideas that really can inspire a new future. That's up to you to decide whether that's true or not for you. But for me, it's a very important aspect, is that we're opening a new future through higher ideals. At the end, I'd like you to be able to understand, at least a little bit, how there is good and bad religions and a little bit of the difference, and be able to tell for yourselves what they are. And I'd also like to try and explain why religion has this bright future ahead of it, and make an effort to convince you that it does have a bright future. And of course, I'm speaking as a member of Happy Science, and my interest is that Happy Science has a bright future, and I think that we'll inspire a lot of goodness in the world. But I don't think that it's the only religion that has a bright future. I think there's others that will also step up in the future. So not just about one religion, but I'll definitely be talking about Happy Science in particular. If you have a true spirit of inquiry, then all the ideas that religion is outdated, old-fashioned, no longer required in the world, not something that modern, intelligent, educated people need to think about, all of those ideas, we can just put them aside. Because if you're honest with yourself, then the ideas that form the heart of our culture really need to be explored. And it's up to you how you explore them, but I really encourage people to look deeper and look past all those surface distractions and blockages and push to try and find the core inspiration that is at the heart of not only religion but also at the heart of being human. I don't think the problem is with too much religion. I think the problem is with not enough religion. So not enough religion means that people have been easily fooled and have made mistakes and been tricked into seeing things as us and them and been manipulated in the name of religion. And that's because religion hasn't been strong enough to, true religion I'm talking about, not just the authorities of particular groups, but true religion hasn't been strong enough to stand up to authority and say, no, that's actually wrong what you're doing, and it's not in the name, truly in the name of God. So I'm certainly not trying to excuse things, but I am asking us to look past some of those things and try and understand them in context, because that really changes them as well. So a lot of people also have a problem with religion where, especially in Australia, I think we're an independent sort of nation, a nation of independent individuals. We're very individualistic, but I think a lot of that individualism comes from marketing. So people are told to buy things that make us individuals. So we buy a new phone or we buy a new car that makes us look like an individual. Okay, so you buy it in a bright colour, or you customise your phone in a certain way to be an individual. And the marketers know exactly what they're doing to us, but people have this very strong sense of, I should be able to do anything that I want. And they think that religion wants to crush their individuality and take over their sense of their uniqueness and make them the same. And a lot of groups, they do become the same. They're made to act the same in the same way. I have no interest in that. In fact, Happy Science is very much about freedom and individuality and becoming you at a higher level. So let's put that aside as well. The real critics of religion need to be other religions. Mass media and academics have no insight, so their criticisms are quite pointless. So it doesn't matter how much Western media criticises Islam, no progress will be made. It really makes no difference. So mass media really has no grounds to criticise religion. All it can do is set up a real dichotomy between society as a whole and religious groups. So too much criticism of religious groups makes them insular, makes them more defensive. And if a religious group becomes too defensive, it can be quite dangerous, especially if that religious group later comes into power. So I don't think it's a good idea for mass culture to criticise religion too harshly, because first of all, they don't know. They don't know what the meaning behind it is. And so just slandering them means that their defences come up, and religion can be quite protective of itself. So I think when we look back at history, we can see a lot of instances where a huge amount of damage has happened because the religion is too worried about its own protection and looking after its defending itself. And the seeds of that happen at an earlier time. When you're feeding Christians to the lions, they seem like a very easy target. But when they're, filling the world with, running the world, it's the tables turn and the damage has already been done. So the truth is, of course, that there's something purer and more essential than we imagine at the core of religion. The idea that it can't really be suppressed in the world, I think one of our contemporary examples is Falun Gong, and Falun Gong standing up to the Communist Party. And the Communist Party, the atrocities that the Communist Party in China, running China, have committed against Falun Gong And you know, they're our neighbours here. They have events out in our out in the courtyard of this library. So the atrocities are probably the worst that have ever been committed against any group in recorded history. They're, you know, I don't want to go into that, but on the most massive and brutal scale. And it hasn't made any difference. Falun Gong is still attracting more and more supporters. So just brutal suppression doesn't crush the human soul. And at the core of it is something that is a part of us. It's an essential part of being human. And I think a lot of people, you know, our modern world is very, is lacking something. And I think a lot of us feel that it's lacking something. And I think that essential core that we really need to awaken and fan, that spiritual core, that's the role of religion, to awaken and promote that central nature. So our mission at Happy Science is to recover trust in religion. These, I'm going to, over the next couple of slides, I'll talk about these a little more. But recover trust in religion is really important to us. Offer a shared language to clarify and describe spiritual truths. So unless we share a common language, well, I think anybody who's tried to discuss religion over dinner with a diverse group of people pretty soon realises that most of the problem comes down to using different words for the same things. So at the core of it, that's part of it. Being able to talk about deeper things really comes down to having a language that's sophisticated enough and precise enough that we can discuss things in details and understand clearly with each other. Increase innovation in the field of religion, I think, is a very important role for Happy Science going forward. And of course, give a voice to the highest spirits in heaven who want to bring more light into the world. 3 areas that Master Okawa believes need reform in the religious sphere. Trust and confidence in religion needs to be regained, and we think we need to earn this back because it's been too long and people have been frankly too careless. And good religion needs to stand up and really make an effort at regaining trust. Innovation and adaptation. So in religion, although it's very easy for a religion to get set in its ways and conform to its interpretation of its founders' ideals, the world changes and the needs of people change. And if it becomes too strict and too concerned with enforcement, then it becomes unable to nurture and love people as God intends. So it needs to be able to innovate. If people are consistently living without hypocrisy and making true effort to love and nurture other people, then people will notice. And over time, we earn the respect and trust, and they'll be able to understand, listen to our words again. So we think this is very important. Really, one of the core things that Happy Science wants to do is to earn back that trust by just being consistent and living without, you know, abusing others. To work on ourselves first as an example to others is clearly the order in which to do things. You can spend a long, long time working to change another person with no success at all. But it's very easy for you to change yourself once you decide to. So, religion tends to hate change. Many people think that older is naturally better. But we don't believe that that's necessarily true. We think that an open, competitive environment for religions where the best ideas flourish and the best ideas spread across religious boundaries is really one that's going to nurture the world the best. So innovation and a kind of creative competition between religions. The attitude of continuous growth is very important. Religions can too often become stagnated. The core leaders of a religion always need to maintain a very polished mind, very virtuous soul, and they need to keep virtue at the centre. So the temptation is for some to become, and management is a very important role for religious leaders, but to keep them in balance. You don't want to become too concerned with money above other things, so to keep the spirit at the core as well. And these things ensure us against, attacks from the media as well. So there's a lot of, very briefly, ideas about sin and karma and heaven and hell, and using fear to cast darkness over people's lives is dangerous if you're not creating hope as well. You can warn people, you're doing something dangerous, you're heading into darkness, turn around, come back towards the light. But that warning needs to be out of love. And using fear as manipulation is not high religious practice. So we really need to be able to tell good religions from bad religions. It's quite famous, I guess, among Happy Science members, but in the early years of Happy Science, the Om sect in Japan became quite well known, and the media talked about them a lot, and they became quite popular quite quickly. And the leader of the cult was, just crazy. So he was poisoning a lot of people and poisoning their souls. And Master Okawa was very vocal in opposition to the Om sect. And they actually have a certificate that the Tokyo police gave to Master Okawa, thanking him for his support. It's a long story, but the sect actually tried to poison him with sarin gas at one point, to assassinate him. But that sort of good religion standing up in opposition to bad religion is actually very important. Too many people are too afraid to say that's right and that's wrong. And we need to be able to tell the difference, or people begin to think that all religions are evil, or just as bad, or that all religions are good. So we really need to be able to stop evil religions and encourage and support positive religions. So the media can't speak out clearly. It can't see the difference, for starters. So it's really up to religious people to do that, to take on that role. So you can consider one of the most important things is if the religion is to succeed in the world and all of their wishes and hopes become a reality and they become a big influence in the world, what would the result be? And in some cases, it's just terrifying. If some religions that, people just ignore as harmless or just a little crazy, if we ignore them too long and they develop too much power, the risk is quite great. If too much authority and power goes to these movements, they can really do a huge amount of damage to individuals and society as a whole. What kind of people support it? Are they good people? Are they authentic people? Do their actions accord with their words? And the character of the founder is also really important. And so if a religious leader is damaged in some way or has a negative tendency in some way, that tendency can become exaggerated over time. And over 1,000 years, it can become vastly exaggerated and lay a kind of taint, a kind of tendency in the religion that might not be healthy going forwards. So we just need to be aware of these things, quite sensitive to these things at their source. So when we talk about the quality of the founder, we're also want to try and consider, however we can, the spiritual level that they come from. So there's definitely many high spirits who come to Earth to teach humanity. And the level that they come from, whether it's of angels or archangels or the high realm of messiahs in the ninth dimension, these high spirits have different personalities and different capacities depending on the dimension. So we really want to try and follow the highest spiritual guidance that we can. It's not to say that we can't support teachers of a lower level. They might come with a very important message that's very timely. So someone might come, certainly reformers come to religions and they say, no, that's not right. And they speak up and they nail things to cathedral doors, and that task is very important. But it's not the job for a ninth dimensional spirit. It's the job for an angel who's on a mission. So we still can support them and follow them, but to be careful of spirits who misjudge their own spiritual level. So over exaggerating their own enlightenment. Because as people ascend through this spiritual group, they can see further. Their vision improves. They can see, it's like climbing a mountain. You can see a much more distant horizon, see more clearly, and know people's hearts and what the world needs much more clearly, and tune in to higher inspiration from higher in heaven. The other thing I want to say about this sort of structure, though, this is a structure that's been taught since the beginning, the dawn of humanity. Humans have known that there's a structure to the spirit world where, Tathagatas or archangels are supporting missions and carrying out missions in the spirit world. But nowadays, when people look at this structure, they're repelled by it because they say, who can say such things? And isn't that just ego to say this? And to say that somebody is higher than somebody else? Well, the defensiveness that's coming out of these people, I think they need to be aware that it's coming from a place of ego, that they're defending their own position. So they're concerned with their own position in this chart. But the thing is, as people go higher, above that dark blue line, they're aware of their own divinity. These spirits are aware that they're part of one great divine spirit that fills the cosmos throughout everything. And that's beyond anything. That's beyond naming, it's beyond claiming as our own, and it's certainly beyond claiming as myself. So it's not a matter of I'm better than you, or you're better than me, or somebody's better than somebody else. It's a matter of not of quality, but of quantity. It's the amount of light that we bring into the world. So we all, at our heart, have divinity. Of course, we're all God inside us. But how much of that light can we bring into the world? How much power can flow through us and light up this world? And Jesus said, you'll know them by their actions. So the fact of it is, how much power are you manifesting? How much influence are you bringing to the world to improve people's lives? I think once we understand how great these spirits are, there's so few of those high spirits. And the light in the sixth dimension is much more than people can even bear in this world. So as you go up, so people visit the spirit world, and in dreams or in visions, and they are often guided by a spiritual guide, and they're shown some insights, and they might say, but I want to go higher, and the spiritual guide says, no, you can't go higher, and they say, oh, come on, and so they go a little higher, and they're blinded by the light and the pain from too much light. So it's not a matter of status, like in a worldly sense, where we give each other status or claim some authority. It's that your soul is vibrating on a certain level, and so you float. Oil floats on water, rocks sink in water, and spirits find their own level in heaven. And if you want to attain these higher levels of enlightenment, then over on the side are the stages of love, and you need to work to love others and to forgive others, and really, and it's not a sudden thing. It may appear sometimes to happen in large steps, but it's every day you need to think, am I loving others? Am I nurturing others? Yeah. In Asian countries, it's very common. You put a meal out for the spirits, and to comfort them and to show that you still care and they're still remembered and they're still welcome, they're still part of the family. And it consoles the spirit who's, deceased and feels like they're being neglected. And so little things like that we don't properly understand. So it's easy to say, oh, that's just some old tradition, when in fact there is a spiritual reason for it. And so there's a great deal in religion that we've forgotten the true meaning and the spiritual purpose, and it's difficult to see that without seeing the structure and the nature of the spirit world. High in spirit, above the earth, there's a spiritual sun that shines down. And so you'll see this everywhere in religious art, this spiritual sun shining down. So the higher you go in dimensions, as I just said, the brighter the light becomes. So much so that if you go too high, it's like Icarus near the sun, become burned if you fly too high. So, and the deeper you go, the further down you go. And by down, I mean in a multi-dimensional sense, but it's, to us, we perceive it in this world as down. So the deeper down you go, the light decreases. So heaven and hell, it's up and down. It's actually, there is a spiritual kind of physics behind it. The dimensional barriers between the worlds, they're like membranes that people move between in the spirit world, but they're very hard to pass through unless the vibration of your mind changes. And there's many of these dimensions. So I think we've covered a little bit about the dangerous aspects of exclusive religions, but if a religion becomes too persecuted and closes off from society as a whole, they can become intolerant of other people, of society, of other religious practices, and they close themselves off. They can put up walls, they can live in closed communities, and it becomes rather dangerous, really, very, very dangerous to live under those conditions. So even though there might be a huge difference between a deeply spiritual person and society at large, we should try and live in a balanced way, and try and live in a way that isn't too misaligned with society. So not to disrupt society or upset society too much by the way that we live and teach. So you certainly don't want intolerance to become, the dominant theme in your religion. If your religion is about persecuting others for the way that they live, then your religion's not about nurturing others and supporting others. Just forcing people to conform doesn't do anything for their souls. And certainly if your religion is about enforcement, then you will be persecuted in the world. So, for instance, Islam is getting a lot of political resistance through Europe because the Sharia law just wants to enforce. And so of course there's resistance. Do they really expect people will take on their customs and beliefs without resisting? It's perfectly natural to expect. Far better than thinking about a movement's exclusiveness is to think about how it is unique and innovative in a positive way. Think about how it's unique. Don't think about how it's the only way. Think about how it's an innovative way. And so how it adds to the discussion, how it adds to the religion as a scene, I guess. Any criticism should be based calmly based on love and wisdom. And here's a really important point about Happy Science. In this respect, tolerance and freedom are at the heart of Happy Science, and its members make progress in their own way according to their individual character. So this video is Master Okawa talking about how the idea of a supreme God is very different from the idea of a monotheistic God, as in only God. And how this difference is quite important for the world going forward with ideas of religion for the world.
What I particularly wanted to say today is that Alcantara does not aim for monotheistic faith, that the Supreme God is not the same as the monotheistic God. I recognize the existence of diverse angels, bodhisattvas and tathagatas, and I'm working together with them. This fact will not change. It's written in the laws of the sun, the golden laws, and the laws of eternity too. Also, the high spirits have different personalities, so they don't have a perfect agreement on everything. There are differences in opinion among the bodhisattvas and tathagatas. However, as a group, they are leading humankind towards salvation while resolving many differences in opinion. This view does not exist in the present world. At present, there is polytheism that involves many different gods. But people cannot tell which god is more exalted than other gods. And then there is monotheism. Monotheism means religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Also, there is another belief known as pantheism, which sees gods in various things, such as trees, plants, rocks, or mountains. People want to worship all kinds of objects. This is rather similar to the old form of Japanese Shinto. There are many such pantheistic religions or animism in the world. In fact, Buddhism too is not mere monotheism. It includes faith in many Buddhas. It includes the belief that there have been many different Buddhas. Thus, I would like you to know that the concept of the Supreme God transcends the conflict between polytheism and monotheism. The Supreme God cannot get his work done without angels. The power of many angels is needed. Otherwise, it would be the same as saying that our organization does not need many devoted believers. That is certainly not the case. So, I hope you will grasp this concept of the Supreme God. As we aim to grow fast, please be careful not to be narrow-minded, not to forget understanding others or lose your patience. People can change, so please do not be too judgmental. I would like you to pay attention to these points. Have a strong aspiration to improve the future of others, while strictly reflecting on your own spiritual efforts. I think this kind of person deserves to be called a chosen one. That is all I have to say today. Thank you very much.
This one, Master Okawa talks about Happy Science and the stages it's going through, as far as the order in which he's teaching teachings, and the organisation is building strong foundations and spreading from those. And it offers quite an insight, I think, into some of those ideas.
I achieved Buddha's enlightenment and wrote its content in my books. So, the first stage of my mission, as the rebirth of Buddha, has concluded. However, this is far from enough. I must now accomplish the second stage of my mission, the work of a saviour, which is to save the people of this world. There is no end to it. It's like counting all the grains of sand in the Ganges River, but we must ceaselessly continue to save the people. My work continues further after my work as a saviour is completed. El Cantare's mission is far greater still. El Cantare's mission is not only the salvation of this world, he's also simultaneously carrying out a reform of the spirit world. Since everything from the reformation of the realm of hell to the evolution and progress of heaven is part of El Cantare's mission, I have such great aspirations indeed. But we're still only at the starting line in this world. We must again set our hearts fast and firm. We must not be satisfied with the present growth of our organization. We're only just at the starting line of receiving public recognition. The real stages of our missionary work efforts have only just begun. People easily believe in established religions which are large in size and have many followers and many buildings of their own. Religions that have not yet built up as much tend to be labelled as new religions that are not trusted. As Happy Science has already grown to a size that cannot be crushed, seeing the present as the starting line, I am working hard, as if walking out with a new start of missionary work. I urge all of you to imagine we are still at the starting line as well. We rededicate ourselves to resuming missionary work. Today is the real start of the turning of the wheel of Dharma. Our goals stretch far into the future. We declare, the teachings of Happy Science shall become the world's spirit, and the basis on which the future of human civilization will be built. Therefore, I want you all to set your aspiration indefinitely higher. Immediate activity goals of temples are important, but do not look out on the world with such tiny vision. I would like you to conjure up a much greater future. My eyes are set on the far distance. I've watched over the history of the earth for hundreds of millions of years. But, as I have revealed before in my lecture, 100 billion years of my solitude, the history of my soul is actually much, much longer. In truth, I'm involved in making the history of the whole universe. I've not preached it yet, since I see no need to do so now. My soul is an ancient one indeed. The fact that this ancient soul chose this moment in time to be born means a strong possibility that the human race will face some serious crisis that is far worse than you can imagine. You must all understand this fact. We must hurry up in our missionary work.
I'm not going to talk today about discerning psychic phenomena, but it's important to note that major world religions were founded using channeling. Moses went up the mountain and he received the 10 Commandments and came back on down. So these religions are of a very high level, but we need to be able to discern between high-level psychic phenomena and low-level psychic phenomena. So there's a lot of spirits who are very interested in powers and tricks and playing games, and if you are attracted to power in that way, it can be very dangerous because they're actually very low-level spirits. Whereas the high-level spirits are interested in nurturing our souls, and it's a much more profound and subtle thing than just impressing people with tricks. So just be careful and check the vibration of the character of the person who's performing any of these miracles and psychic phenomena. So to have right aspirations, so not to be tempted with the promise of supernatural abilities, but rather strive tirelessly to purify yourself and to slowly lift your spiritual level and to achieve true spiritual progress. this is the goal of true religion, to uplift people in this way, not to give people powers and to allow them to speak in other languages or any trickery like this. Connect with your own guardian and guiding spirits to receive the guidance from heaven in that way, and not to be deluded into thinking too much about your own spiritual level and the greatness of your own importance in that way. So the global religion that Happy Science is looking to create is one that transcends the ethnic, regional and traditional religions, and it overcomes some of the old problems of different ways of thinking that we've really struggled to harmonise over the millennia. So problems of self-power as in Buddhism and other power as in Christianity, where you pray to an external God rather than an internal God. We can transcend problems like that. Ideas of monotheism and polytheism can be transcended with a clear understanding of the spirit world. And ideas, this is at the heart of a lot of problems in this world, the idea of harmony versus progress. So some people are all about progress and others are all about harmoniously living life. And they come into conflict with each other. And to understand that, in truth, God's will is that we manifest both of those things, both harmony and progress in this world. So that's a really important aspect of the future of religion for us. And of course, at the core of any future religion needs to be love, self-reflection, an idea of utopia where individuals are important. Not just a utopia that's a dictatorship type utopia, but a utopia where each individual's nourished and their soul is nourished and their life is nurtured and grows in its own unique way is really important. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful month and discover good religion. This one is fascinating. This is channeled from Mohammed. Have you seen Master Okawa channeling before? No. Well, this is quite interesting.
When I asked if there were any requests for today, one of those from General Headquarters was to ask Mohammed what is happening in the Middle East. It started in Tunisia, and now popular movements are springing up in other desert regions, though it's not clear whether they are revolutions or riots. What we want to know is whether Mohammed is involved in this movement, as they are focused on Islamic countries.
Are you Mohammed? Thank you very much for descending to the Happy Science General Headquarters today. You were also kind enough to come here in February of last year. Since then, the circumstances in the Arabian Middle East have changed dramatically. When you instructed us in February, you told us about the direction in which Islam was heading and said that it would be a chance for Islam now. As the U.S. President Barack Obama proposed a reconciliation with Islam. Amidst this trend, democratic revolutions are spreading more widely, starting with Tunisia, Egypt, and yesterday it was Libya. Would you tell us how you see this current trend? Or perhaps the work that you are doing in it?
Mainly, I think that, in a sense, you are one of the causes of these movements. A new force has appeared which feels that Islam is in need of reform. It is no longer a question of the traditional opposition with Christianity. Another way of thinking has appeared that sees a need for the reform of Islam from a different perspective that focuses on you. In some ways, I agree with that. After more than 1,000 years, I think that Islam will be left behind if it sticks to the thoughts and deeds of the time it was founded. However, throughout our long history since the time of the Crusaders, we would have a strong antipathy towards being simply absorbed by Christian culture. We realize now that a new religion has emerged, which has a certain amount of tolerance towards us. And we can see a way whereby a certain degree of democratization may be possible in a form that would not be completely Christianized. We do not wish to see the collapse of religion in such a form that we would once again be colonized by America or Europe. Christian countries cannot have us all to their own as long as Islam, as a state religion, is integrated into our politics and systems. In that sense, we have been able to use Islam to shield our governments. However, Islam is being criticized by the Christians for oppressing human rights or obstructing free business activities based on democracy. Certainly people are equal in poverty, yet there are also many military dictatorships, and they only have a low level of happiness. European countries, as well as America, on the other hand, are now in economic danger and do not have enough power to provide financial assistance to the Islamic world. The other day in Scandinavia, I think it was in Norway, a young right-winger committed mass murder in protest of Turkish immigration. Apparently, he did it partly in protest against the government allowing immigrants in, despite the fact Norwegians themselves could hardly find jobs. Many people who lack money under Islam are going to work in the West and are sending money back to their families. But financial decline of the West may create a situation where they are being jostled and may even suffer persecution, like the Jews once did. People can become antagonistic when faced with an economic recession, and there is a tendency for the weak to be made into scapegoats. A war labeled as Islamic democratization is currently underway, and the NATO forces are actually bombing Libya from the air. The American forces are also participating in this. Of course, from the perspective of justice, the NATO forces cannot attack the people. So they claim that they are striking against Gaddafi's army. However, another reason is that waging war generates huge expenditure. It enables them to manufacture ammunition and weapons, and all sorts of other things, and thus help the economy to recover. I expect that the calculations have already been made. Being aware of all that, I assume that Islam needs to promote speedy democratization and liberalization as a form of self-defense. Your new teachings direct very harsh criticism towards communism, and equality under a military dictatorship is really no different than communism. The people within Islam now have taken a discerning look at oppression of human rights and the equality of poverty, and there are some who speak with approval of your teachings. We are now exploring whether a certain degree of coexistence is possible. If we can open up a new horizon while successfully keeping our Islamic teachings alive. In that sense, I do feel that the time may well have come. So I am involved in the present movement. No doubt a channel for profound interchanges was opened in the spirit world when I sent you a spiritual message last year.
Does that mean that someone else is playing a central role in guiding or advising the democratization movement, which has so suddenly started?
Yeah, I have given my approval, but personally I'm not that interested in overthrowing Islamic states. So I think that someone a little higher up is involved in that.
I think that is probably Alcantara, whose intention is playing a central role in Islamic reform. Would it be correct to assume that guidance is being provided by Alcantara?
Elohim is basically the central god of the Middle East. And Allah is not a proper noun, but a general term for a god who is given many different names. Human beings do not know God's name, do they? The reason why it went that way is that Muhammad himself initially recognized Judaism and Christianity, but when their persecution of him intensified, he realized the difficulty in calling upon a God with the same name as theirs. That is why Allah is used, and other gods as well. But mainly Elohim is the central god of the Middle East. And he is now being assisted by Zoroaster or Mani, amongst others. I think that he is being assisted in this, and that naturally Jesus and Moses also have an interest in the Middle East. In any case, it's a region that has given birth to innumerable religions, and there are gods that still have power, but of whom you are unaware, you know. I think that Elohim's actions are playing a central role. Elohim is sending the thoughts of the current revolutions to the Mediterranean economic sphere. ranging from the Middle East to part of Europe. And of course, quite a bit of Africa is included too. As well, Thoth is playing a major role in reforms in North America. And in Asia, Lamu seems to have joined in the defense of liberty. Rient, Paul Crowd, and others are involved in liberalization in South America. Here in Japan, you are told to convey this truth to every corner of the world. But I think that a simultaneous global revolution is about to get underway. Spiritually, it has already started. And I think that a major worldwide transformation will occur sometime between this year and the next. The origin of these thoughts may seem small initially, but they will gradually have a tremendous effect. All these revolutions are occurring in the Middle East, with the people rising up, forming armies, chasing up presidents to promote democratization. And now the sparks are starting to spread to China. This is exactly what El Cantare intends, and it will probably go on to include the rebuilding of the U.S. and of Central and South America. It would seem that greater prosperity is envisioned for the Asian region, and there will probably soon be a major shift in values.